So again, this is like a game of give and take. You gotta open a little bit to then be able to close when you need to. If you're already in a closed position there, you can't close any further without creating a massive compressive strategy in the back of that rib cage, and that's only gonna lead to issues if that's prolonged. My name's Greg Chaplin. I'm a physical therapist and strength and conditioning specialist, and in this video I'm going to be discussing left upper body position for upright bass. I'll describe the position that we're typically seeing and some of the issues that are associated with it, and then I'll describe my fix. So make sure you stay tuned for the video, and without further ado, let's get right into it. So why do we care about this left upper body position for upright bass? And the main reason that we're caring about this is because this is where we're going to see most of our issues. We have this left arm, shoulder blade, and rib cage here that have to support this position for prolonged periods of time. And the longer we do that with a strategy that's less than optimal, the higher the risk of injury for the left back, sort of in through this region, shoulder blade, shoulder joint, as well as neck. So as we discussed in the video talking about upright bass position, we said that we often can have this tendency to orient the body more towards the right side when we're playing bass, because we're often instructed early on in the training to have that left foot behind the bass and the right foot is kind of off to the side of the bass. So we're in that left foot in front of right kind of orientation, which can turn us to face more towards the right. Now, as we've described in other videos, we have this rightward bias just as humans based on how we're constructed internally and how we're wired neurologically. So if you haven't checked out those videos, go ahead and check those out before continuing on. This position, this rightward orientation, isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when we're adding training volume, so sustained periods of playing on top of this strategy, or with this strategy, what we can get is we can get more or less stuck in a position that causes us to use this left shoulder and neck region in a way that increases the likelihood of injury. So what we're dealing with, we're looking from the back here on this rib cage when we have this right orientation, is the spine starts to rotate right, and this sternum starts to rotate right as well. And so what we get is we get a compression here on the front of the right side, and we get a compression here on the back of the left side. So if I just compress the back of the left and the front of the right, you can see that we start to get that turn towards the right side. And so the issue that we get with this is if we're holding this left arm up and we're turned to the right, we're using all these muscles in through here, which actually further that rightward turn. And so if we're going to keep that shoulder blade musculature in a more relaxed position, we're going to have to change one or all of these three things. So as a first solution, we can start by putting that right foot in front of the left and turning to the left, like we talked about in that video on how to hold the upright bass. Now, as we're in this position, we can get this shoulder blade to start to come into this position where it actually decompresses off the back of the rib cage and allows a little bit more rotation into that direction in two ways. So if we keep this arm at 90 degrees, what's going to happen is all the muscles in here are going to have to contract and pull that shoulder blade in close. If we let that elbow come down below shoulder level, we're immediately going to bias more towards that position. And that's just normal mechanics of arm elevation. So if we can be a little bit lower with that elbow, we're immediately going to pick up this resting position of the shoulder blade that comes more around and comes into this position where the back of the shoulder blade comes right off the back of the rib cage. That's going to give us the expansion we need. Now, to further this, we can actually play with the position of the upper arm. So if we're here, we're positioned with the arm towards what we would consider to be internal rotation of the arm. And when we get internal rotation of the arm, the relative movement of the shoulder blade is going to be to compress against that space, making it harder for us to turn towards the left and expand there. Now, if we move from this position of relative internal rotation with this upper arm and we rotate out this way, so the biceps is facing forward and that elbow's under the hand, we're achieving external rotation at the shoulder joint. But in the relative motions, what we're going to get is we're going to get a movement from this external rotation position of the shoulder blade, where the shoulder blade's pushing against the back of the rib cage, to this more internally rotated position where that shoulder blade is coming off the rib cage, again allowing that left rotation to occur. So to recap, we have 3 different strategies that we can use. One is just to get the body to turn back into the left. So we can do that through our lower body, our pelvic and core position here. And then we can bias those shoulder blade and arm positions, right? So we're gonna go elbow down below shoulder height, which is immediately gonna help turn that left shoulder blade into that internal rotation position. Then we bias the arm towards the external rotation position where we get hand and elbow even. That's gonna further bias that left side around. And then what you might notice is as you do that, you can actually turn back further to the left. That's gonna free up all sorts of room for good shoulder blade motion. So if you need to be up in the lower part of the base and you need to come up and get that arm towards shoulder height, you're gonna have a whole lot more slack to work with than if you were turned this way and you were like this and you had already taken up all that slack by maximally shortening the musculature in here. So again, this is like a game of give and take. You gotta open a little bit to then be able to close when you need to. If you're already in a closed position there, you can't close any further without creating a massive compressive strategy in the back of that rib cage, and that's only gonna lead to issues if that's prolonged. So once again, in short, we're gonna get that turn, we get elbow below shoulder height, and we get this arm into external rotation so the elbow is below the hand. If you do that, you're gonna keep that left side open, that left back, shoulder blade, and neck are all gonna be happy. And go ahead, try it out. Go ahead, leave me a comment below if you have any questions, and we'll make sure to do a follow-up video, or just let me know that it worked for you or it didn't work for you. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, I'm Greg Chaplin. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.